One of the hardest parts of leading workshops is kind of the same problem, or one of the hardest parts of just being a photographer on a road trip in general is, what do you do when the conditions are not great? During the last workshop, we had a lot of really rainy, foggy, cloudy days, and we dealt with it. We went out in the forest, we made some foggy, moody forest scenes. Now we're greeted with like empty skies. And it's looking like we're gonna have empty skies for several days, which is stressful as a instructor, because I gotta figure out what we're gonna shoot. I think the plan is going to be, rather than going and kind of doing an uphill battle and trying to make a good scene from one of these seascapes that, you know, with no clouds in the sky, they just don't turn out great. So rather than doing that, I'm gonna do what I would do, which is I would go into a forest and try to get some of the light filtering through the forest canopy and getting some of that streaming light. We're about an hour, a little more than an hour away from the redwoods. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to roll with the punches and deal with what the weather gives us. And we'll see how it turns out. So now we're in the redwoods, kind of wandering around one of my favorite trails here, kind of in Northern California. And like all forest scenes, it's challenging. It's always challenging to try to make order of chaos in a forest scene like this. So right now, what I'm encouraging people to do is break out their telephotos and to kind of really try to isolate a few subjects. The sun's coming up soon, and it's gonna be poking through these trees, which is gonna really help for simplifying the scene, because it's going to be adding little splashes of light and dappled light across these tree trunks and give us a clear subject. It's almost like nature's dodging and burning. And it helps a lot in these chaotic scenes to just kind of chase the light around, which is what we'll be doing here. So the sun's starting to peek through, and we're all having a great time kind of chasing the light, photographing backlit moss and backlit limbs. It's really challenging because the light is moving pretty rapidly, and by the time you get set up with a composition, the light won't be hitting your subject anymore. But the forest really comes alive when the light comes out and it starts backlighting things, and you get beams of light shooting through the canopy of the forest. Really, really gorgeous. So it's the fourth day of the workshop now, and to say that this has been an interesting workshop would be kind of an understatement. First of all, there's the weather. We haven't had a cloud this entire workshop yet, so that led to a whole bunch of night photography. We've pretty much been shooting mostly nighttime seascapes and forest scenes for the last several days, with the addition of photographing one of the lighthouses at night. The weather has not been like it normally is. Normally this time of year, it's pretty stormy on the Oregon coast. Not this week. It's been beautiful tourist weather, and it's actually made for really nice astrophotography. We've been shooting a lot of Milky Way stuff. We don't have a moon, so it's been working out pretty well so far. The second reason that this has been a very interesting workshop is because I had to actually go into the ER, or go see a doctor. I woke up one morning, I had some kind of mosquito bite looking things on my arm and on my back, and then the next day I had more, and then the third day I had more, and I finally decided I better go to an ER. Some of them were getting big and red.
and pus-filled and gross, kind of like a spider bite. So I don't know if it's some kind of bed bug thing or some kind of viral thing. So I had to go get some antibiotics and some kind of like pesticide ointment. So there's that. Health stuff aside, things are looking up. We have some beautiful cloud cover rolling in, and there's a little gap down on that horizon. So it's just enough to give us the hope. Maybe it's a false hope, but we have hope of some amazing color going on tonight. Hopefully we get something special, because these guys deserve it. They haven't seen clouds yet on the Oregon coast, which is incredibly rare. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go chase the light, hopefully find a gap in those clouds, and hopefully get a nice sunset tonight. Should be interesting, so I'm looking forward to it. So now we're just a little ways north of Newport, Oregon, and we're photographing the first clouds of the trip. We're all very excited for clouds, but they're quickly dissipating. Things can change so fast on the coast sometimes. So right now what we're doing is we're doing telephoto shots with the lighthouse in the background, and we're hoping for good things to happen with what clouds we're gonna have left and the sun. I'm worried that our clouds are just going to leave, but we'll still have some. And one thing's for sure, there'll still be more than what we've had so far on the trip. So that's good.
Hey there, world!
It's been an absolutely gorgeous night. Just a little bit of color. It didn't quite blow up like I was thinking it might blow up, but it's a whole lot more color than we've had on this trip so far. So what we did was we walked down kind of as close as you can to the lighthouse in the background. We were using the water kind of flowing over some of the foreground rocks as our foreground, and shooting wide to try to incorporate a lot of the sky, because the sky was just looking so good. In a shot like that, it's not really so much about the lighthouse. The lighthouse kind of becomes like a little piece of eye candy for your background. I kind of like it that way, rather than like, you know, just having a simple shot of just the lighthouse. It's a little bit more of a complex wide angle shot. And when people look at the photo, they see, you know, first of all, they see all the nice textures and clouds, the water movement, and then they're like, oh, and there's a lighthouse in the background. That's cool. I kind of like using popular landmarks like that as just a little piece of eye candy, rather than just making the whole shot about that landmark. So we're gonna hang out here on the beach and shoot for a while. This is the kind of evening where a lot of times the twilight, you know, well after sunset, we're talking 20 minutes after sunset, can look really good and really photogenic. So it's safe to say this was the best color we've had thus far, just because there were clouds. These were the first clouds of the whole workshop, and I think it's safe to say we're all very happy to have them. So I think it's time for some sleep. We got to get up early in the morning. Beautiful night.